For a lot of veterans, the devotion to service doesn't end when they retire from the military. CBS's Chip Reed met some vets who went above and beyond the call of duty.
While watching the devastating Texas storm on TV, Marine Corps veteran Liz Hensel made a decision.
We need to do something.
She called close friend David Pineda, a disabled Army veteran.
I said, that's what I do to the troops.
With help from friends, they rented a truck and filled it with essentials.
97 cases of water. We took blankets, socks, diapers.
Even dog food.
Pets are a huge part of our lives, as you can clearly see.
Hensel and two other Marine veterans then drove 22 hours straight through the night to a community center in Austin.
This is exactly what the families are asking for.
How did it make you feel to do this?
Like we're back in action. We're still in service. We're just doing it a different way.
A different way for these veterans to serve their country. Chip Reed, CBS News, Woodbridge, Virginia.
How grateful are we for our veterans? Just amazing.
Finally tonight, a group of military veterans in Tennessee has been bonding weekly at an unlikely location for 2 decades. They never canceled a meeting until the pandemic hit, but now they're back. Chris Davis from our Nashville station, WTVF, has their story.
In the middle of a store known for buying in bulk,
good morning,
is a rare opportunity.
Hoorah!
Every Friday morning at 11.
You eat free. What can I get for you? One hot dog? Okay.
Over cold drinks and hot dogs.
Best hot dog in Tennessee.
Come on over here, young man.
Is a chance to hear a warehouse worth of war stories.
To take Vietnamese soldiers in.
This veteran support group first invaded with a more modest armada. 2 men were having lunch when retired Army veteran Tom Meredith walked by.
General Frame yelled at me and said, "Hey, are you a veteran?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "Of what?" And I said, "Well, I was in the U.S. Army, Vietnam." He said, "Oh, hell, sit down."
What started as 3 men,
little by little, we ended up with what you see now,
has turned into an occupying force at Costco for the last 22 years.
I was in the Navy doing WWII.
A veteran of 3 wars, Ed Smith is also a ranking member of these lunches.
I really enjoy coming over here and seeing all the people and seeing where they all came from.
A chance to relish and also embellish.
Hearing some of the bullshit all of these guys tell you about what they did.
Well, at least the Navy can think.
But don't be mistaken.
These people got great stories.
This isn't an old man's club.
I said, well, I'm gonna approach these old guys because I'm just one of them.
Army veteran Hillary Stapleton was the first female member, but isn't the last.
We understand each other. We have a common bond. I don't think that any fraternity or sorority can beat what this group has got.
Vietnam.
But while you have to be a veteran to get their official shirt, any person of any age
You look like a veteran to me.
That's right.
can participate.
Is that the USS New York?
It's nice to be recognized, but I always tell them it was my honor to have served.
Because if you ever wanted to hear another story, you always know where to find them.
We meet every Friday here.
Oh, you do?
We do.
Nice meeting you all, veterans. Nice meeting you.
For CBS News, I'm Chris Davis, Brentwood, Tennessee.
Some of America's most seasoned veterans are getting a chance to relive their youth, thanks to some patriotic volunteers. And CBS's Nicole Killian has their story.
Has anybody got a bottle of champagne?
At 98, Lauren Hellickson has a lot to celebrate.
Oh, number 7. That's my lucky number.
The World War II veteran is climbing aboard this restored 1940s Stearman biplane for his first dream flight.
What made you want to do this?
To encourage others.
The nonprofit made up of volunteer pilots has launched Operation September Freedom. After suspending trips during the pandemic, they want to take to the skies with 1,000 World War II vets by the end of next month.
Do you see this as a race against time?
We absolutely do. We see that we have a small window here to be able to say thank you.
I'm 98. I have difficulty finding any other veterans that are that age.
How does that make you feel?
Old.
but not too old for this retired Navy corpsman who survived battle in the South Pacific to take a victory lap.
Is it everything you imagined?
And more. What a wonderful trip.
Signing off.
How do you spell John Hancock?
On a mission accomplished. Nicole Killian, CBS News, Fort Meade, Maryland.
What a nice experience to have that flight again. Graduations are a reason to celebrate, especially when you've waited decades for your diploma. Here's CBS's Omar Villafranca.
697 students are graduating from Alvin High School. Pat Moore is there to see his great-granddaughter, Brissa.
You excited?
Oh, heck yeah. But she isn't the only member of the Moore family to graduate this year. Moore almost graduated 76 years ago from Alvin High School.
What happened?
Werner Browning failed me.
In what subject?
English literature, and I hate to read.
So he came back the following year, but this time,
Uncle Sam was calling, so I had to go.
a few months before graduation, Moore was drafted into the Army Air Corps. After nearly 4 years of service, he came home to fly crop duster planes and start a family. Being a dad and a pilot left little time for school. But earlier this year, in a small ceremony, Moore finally received his diploma, the class of 1946.
What made you want to come back and get your diploma and graduate?
That little girl right there.
And tonight, he proudly passed the torch.
I love you.
Love you, baby.
You've probably accomplished a lot in your life. Where does this rank?
Way up there.
At 93, Pat Moore proves that age, like the year on a diploma, is just a number. Omar Villafranca, CBS News, Alvin, Texas.
Gotta love that. A reminder tonight that it is never too late to say thank you, especially when it comes to American heroes. Here's CBS's Lana Zach.
Right down the middle. 97-year-old Edward Chan has loved the Yankees since he was a kid. At that time, U.S. laws discriminated against Chinese Americans. But Chan chose to serve while World War II was raging.
To me, a person like Hitler is somebody that is going to destroy our democracy.
The private first class served as a medic, and once back home, he replaced images of war with a life of joy. And his military service was largely forgotten until 2018, when lawmakers began honoring Chinese American veterans with the Congressional Gold Medal.
Why did you want your father to have this? You know, normally he never asks for any recognition or honor, but this is a Chinese American award, and I know that it's such an important part of his life.
This past weekend,
Edward Chan.
Chan's All-American team
The Yankees say thank you for your sacrifice and service to our nation.
Thank you for your service. Cheering his role in American history. Lana Zach, CBS News, Englishtown, New Jersey.
When World War II veteran Eugene Dednam died at the age of 100 with no surviving family members, few people knew about his heroics during the war. Few knew about his 6 campaigns, including Normandy. Well, not anymore. Here's CBS's Nikki Batiste.
Today, a crowd of strangers honored Army veteran Eugene Dednam.
One of Eugene's requests when he passed was to be buried in his military uniform.
A uniform that waited in his closet for 77 years. Dednam served in a segregated military during World War II.
Our Father.
But his service was all but forgotten at the time of his death.
Well, I wanted to make sure that he had a proper send-off.
Seated next to the war hero's casket was his neighbor, Deshaun Hicks. The two had a 10-year bond.
He was like a grandfather to me. He always talked to me about goodwill, good intent, having compassion for others.
He had just turned 100 years old.
Yes. When he turned 100 years old, I was there to knock on his door and say, "Congratulations, you did it." And he would laugh and grin.
Despite being a quiet man, Hicks says Dednam played jazz music loudly every Sunday.
I think he wanted the world to know that he served and how much an ordinary person can make such a big difference.
Eugene Dednam, an extraordinary life. Nikki Batiste, CBS News, Paramus, New Jersey.
Second Lieutenant William McGowan was buried with full military honors in Normandy, France. A pilot, he died during the invasion at age 24, but his remains weren't recovered until 2018 and not forensically identified until a year later. Now to the burial of a Vietnam veteran. It was attended by people across the Midwest who never knew him. CBS's Jennifer Merrily reports from Spooner, Wisconsin.
They all came.
I thought mileage doesn't matter, you know. It's just honoring a fellow soldier.
For the same reason.
Humbling, very humbling to see so many people for a gentleman that did not have the family.
U.S. Marine Gail Seafluth given a full military funeral and burial. Neighbor Holly Champagne says he was special to her family.
He's just a big, gruff, grumpy, tall man who was just super nice if you got underneath that exterior.
The Vietnam veteran died in January, and when the friend who was to care for his ashes also died, the County Veterans Services Office planned a burial. They invited everyone via social media to thank the 76-year-old for his commitment to country and to honor his life.
In the last 5 years, I've done this 4 times now for veterans who didn't have family. So it's to bring awareness that if it's going to happen here in small Barron County, it's happening all over the United States.
Patriot Guard and Legion riders, veterans, civilians, strangers, all wanted to pay their respects.
He's a veteran. I'm a veteran, so there's sort of a kinship even though I never knew the man.
It's a touching situation to honor this veteran.
People who came, who were here to honor Gail, tell me he will always have family.
He deserves every bit of this. He didn't think he did, but he deserves every bit of this.
Jennifer Merrily, CBS News, Spooner, Wisconsin.
Finally tonight, overcoming the wounds of war takes courage, strength, and help from Hope for the Warriors. That's a nonprofit that is helping injured veterans looking for ways to heal their mental and physical scars and find something else, inspiration. Here's CBS's Janet Shamlian.
This is a slice of happiness Chris Kind couldn't imagine in the past. The Army veteran says he was angry and depressed in the years after a mortar blast in Iraq left him with a brain injury. Later, PTSD.
These are skin grafts right here.
And burns on 65% of his body.
It was just hard adjusting to that, to that new norm.
The father of 5 says he needed connection, but couldn't find it until he started gardening.
So you found joy in this and some relief?
Oh, a lot of relief.
But his burns prevented him from being outside in the midday sun. That's when Hope for the Warriors gifted him this $10,000 greenhouse.
What was that like hearing you were going to?
I was like, wow.
The nonprofit has granted more than 250 wishes, everything from woodworking equipment to family vacations.
What is it like for you to see these wishes granted?
To be able to grant a wish, that's really cool. And to know that it's life-changing.
Kind, now living up to his name.
The biggest thing about growing this stuff and making me feel good is just to giving it away to other people, man.
You're giving? What are you getting?
I'm getting joy.
Joy and growth. Janet Shamlian, CBS News, Floresville, Texas.
Now an act of kindness tailor-made for an American sailor. Here's Steve Hartman on the road.
It was just another day at Causeway Alterations in Dunedin, Florida, when out of the blue, this elderly man walked in and asked if someone could make him a Navy uniform.
Why does a 97-year-old need a Navy uniform?
I love the uniform. I love my country, and I'm so happy I was able to serve.
This you?
It's me, yeah.
Joe Hall served in World War II as a Navy petty officer, first class.
Is that your ship?
Yeah.
He was on a destroyer escort, where he made some of the best friends of his life and lost a few too. They're all gone now, which is why Joe wanted that uniform, for when he sees them again. Susan Williams is the seamstress who waited on him.
I've made everything from underwear to wedding dresses. But to have a World War II veteran come in and say, I want to be buried in my uniform, it was like, this man is not leaving this store without me making this uniform because it's the most important thing I'll ever do in my life. And it became a strong obsession of mine to make it right.
For the next 3 weeks, Susan poured herself into this project, binding every seam, satin-lined cuffs, buttonholes by hand. She spent at least 100 hours.
I love this.
And charged almost nothing.
Oh, beautiful.
Joe actually got his uniform a few months ago, but came back in to try it on again at our request. He hardly seemed bothered.
I feel like I'm back in the service.
In fact, even though he wanted this for his death, you get the sense that now it's what he lives for.
Look at that. Can't beat it, right?
Right.
I wanted to be with my friends, be part of them. And this uniform kind of brings them close to me, you know.
They say the suit makes the man, but not in this case. Joe Hall was a loyal friend 7 decades before he got these dress blues. He just needed someone to sew his heart to his sleeve for that long-awaited reunion.
You've done a wonderful job.
Thank you.
Steve Hartman, on the road in Dunedin, Florida.
Finally tonight, the healing power of the arts is on full display at the National Veterans Art Museum in Chicago. It offers a space for those who served to share their stories. CBS's Charlie DeMar has our continuing series honoring our heroes.
In Chicago, there's a home for the art of war.
Well, that mission right there was what we do, search and destroy.
Artists like Dr. Charles Smith, 82 now, 25 when he was drafted, and the Marines sent him to Vietnam. Art has helped him heal ever since.
And I felt when I got home that it was necessary to make sure that that legacy of that war was not forgotten, especially the most important part of it, that blacks and whites fought together. We died together.
What stands out about these pieces?
Yeah, I think the experience of women in the military.
Giselle Futrell served in Afghanistan as a Marine when she was 21. Now she's the museum's executive director.
It's a place to inspire dialogue. It's a place where we can start to talk about the things that are uncomfortable, you know. Human beings aren't designed to go to those uncomfortable places. The best thing that the public can do for our veterans is to listen. So this is a place of listening.
To a truth that can not only inform, but help heal. Charlie DeMar, CBS News, Chicago.
Finally tonight, an ambitious project is underway to remember some of the nation's military who died in service to our country. CBS's Marissa Parra has the story.
In Glendale, Arizona, a special delivery.
Really appreciate what you're doing.
Inside this bag is the newest addition to the collection Nick and Sherry Fresquez have been building for 16 years.
We have books, we have pictures.
Memories of their son, Jeremy.
He has an entire book for all of his achievements.
He graduated from the Air Force Academy in 2001, just months before 9/11.
He decided he wanted to do more.
He later deployed to Iraq, guiding warplanes on the front lines. His mom remembers how the 26-year-old promised he'd be fine, the only promise he couldn't keep.
Got a telephone call from his wife, Lindsay, and she said, Jeremy's not coming home. There's been an airplane accident. There's no survivors.
It's a wound time never really heals, but there is something that can help.
Look at that smile.
A portrait of her fallen son, painted and delivered by people who never met him.
I can see so much of him in both of you, too.
Naval Academy graduate and Iraq War veteran Brendan Aronson started Paint Your Heroes, a project through his company Paint True, dedicated to giving hand-painted portraits to families of every U.S. Service Academy graduate killed in action since 9/11.
Why this year?
I feel like the entire nation is sort of reeling from collective trauma. That, combined with the withdrawal from Afghanistan, made us want to do something big.
Even bigger is his goal to paint portraits of every fallen service member, 9/11 first responder, and healthcare worker who died on the front lines of COVID-19.
We're a very small organization, but you have to dream big.
Where this dream gets delivered.
He's always here, but to see the smile up there just makes me happy.
A little canvas lights the home and the heart. Marissa Parra, CBS News, Glendale, Arizona.
You've got fans.
After 4 combat tours in Afghanistan, retired Army Colonel Chris Kalenda wanted to honor his fellow soldiers.
So you went from not riding a bicycle in 20 years to riding 1,700 miles.
I said to myself, I'm not getting any younger.
Kalenda biked cross-country to visit the grave sites of the 6 fallen paratroopers from the unit he commanded.
These are the names of the guys.
How does it feel to have completed it now?
I feel a lot of gratitude. Gratitude for the service and sacrifice of our 6 fallen heroes. Gratitude for the 800 who had my back for 15 months.
Combat changed the survivors. Many struggle with post-traumatic stress.
One of our paratroopers, he now lives in a dumpster. He's a meth addict. In our unit alone, we've lost more to suicide and substance abuse than enemy fire. We had one of our paratroopers die 2 weeks ago by suicide.
How should people ask veterans about their service?
What was the best experience you ever had? What was the most awesome thing about your service? Very positive questions.
The chaotic end to the U.S. war in Afghanistan also triggered emotions.
Over 2,300 service members killed, to include 6 of my own, from my own unit. Tens of thousands wounded, $2 trillion spent, 20 years, and to see it all come crashing down like a house of cards, I was very angry.
He put it all into that ride, scaling a steep 4-mile hill in Pennsylvania to visit the grave of Captain Dave Boris.
I don't think I ever gave myself the permission, the room to grieve for him. I'm imagining Dave next to me. Of course, he would have beat me up that mountain. He would have been taunting me the whole way.
On that 1,700-mile journey, he learned that sometimes you've got to open old wounds to heal better. For Eye on America, Margaret Brennan, Washington.
Along a Tennessee highway, a runner carrying the American flag is an attention getter.
What type of reaction do you get? We get a lot of honks. I've had people wave at me.
But for Army veteran Christine Barreras, what looks like a solo pursuit has never felt more collaborative.
What was happening before you joined this group?
I started to fall into a deeper depression and isolation.
A feeling many have expressed after leaving the military, and the reason more than 1,100 veterans have joined the support group Team Red, White, and Blue for a Stars and Stripes carrying relay that started September 11th in New York and is making its way across 9 states, finishing 2,500 miles later in Atlanta on Veterans Day.
Team Red, White, and Blue's mission really is to help foster that sense of community that we felt when we were on active duty and that we often leave behind when we transition to the civilian world.
Through downpours, often with families in tow,
Beautiful.
The trek has taken the flag from rural forests to Pennsylvania farm fields, across a high school stadium, and past the Jefferson Memorial. This day's relay ends in Nashville. But it's just the start, Barreras says, of her new chapter.
To get back into that connection, that camaraderie, and get back to being driven and have purpose again.
A new mission for veterans seeking motivation and connection, this time as warriors of the road.
Yeah!
Janet Shamlian, CBS News, Nashville.
Okay, done. We're done.
It is rarely a fun visit, but for people who love their pets, we know a trip to the vet is integral in helping our best friends live long, healthy lives.
So she should be good to go for the whole year.
But the stress a pet goes through at the vet is nothing compared to some of the bills those trips can produce. And for some pet owners, the cost is just too much.
She needed her shots, and I wanted to try something new for her.
Urania is one of dozens of people taking advantage of the L-Vet Project swing through the Bay Area, offering free vet care, vaccinations, food, and supplies to the pets of the unhoused and street pets in vulnerable communities with the help of local vets.
So I saw they called for volunteers, and they needed help from, folks who are licensed in the state, and so I volunteered.
A huge help, especially with a national shortage of veterinarians and an economic climate that can put health care out of reach. Max is glad to bring it right to those who need it. He's a college student from New York, and driving this mobile clinic is his summer job.
These animals, they just bring light to a lot of people's lives, and
I'm happy that I can help other people and I can help these animals who are in these circumstances, because nobody deserves to go without vet care. No animal does.
For Liz, it reminds her of a quote she's heard.
Giving is living, and I believe it. That is, I always feel great after I volunteer.
These pets are feeling great after it's all over and they get their treat at the end, and their guardians have one more stressor off their plate.
The doctors are caring. They work really well with the dogs, and they're really lovely.
Ann Makovic, CBS News, San Jose.
So, when it comes to heroes, you couldn't find a better example than the one in our next story. CBS's Steve Hartman goes on the road with an update about our past, present, and future.
It all began here in Raleigh, North Carolina,
A1.
with a flurry of plastic bombshells.
You sunk our battleship!
As we first reported in 2015, Carter and Jack Hansen were really into Battleship, which led to a family vacation to see the Yorktown, a retired aircraft carrier in Charleston, South Carolina.
I just realized how amazing history could be.
And it was about to get even better. On that same trip, the boys learned about a World War II vet named Robert Harding, who actually served on the Yorktown. They got his email address, started corresponding daily, and even put his picture by their beds. Give them the chance and they'd chew your ear off about Mr. Harding and what he did on board as a plane handler.
And when the plane's ready to launch, he would go unstrap this, and the plane would go flying that direction.
The folks who run the Yorktown say a lot of kids love the ship, but no kid has ever fallen for a sailor who served here like these two boys have fallen for Mr. Harding, which is why, for this trip, the Yorktown made special arrangements.
Okay.
For a surprise visitor.
Mr. Harding?
That's right.
Hugging an old salt never felt so sweet.
Oh, you're a good boy.
It was hard to tell who enjoyed it more or who needed it more.
Japanese plane.
Over the years, Mr. Harding says he'd kept most of his war stories to himself.
Where they were firing, I guess I need somebody to talk to about it. It's surprising the way it worked out.
Since we first told this story, the kids have stayed in touch with Mr. Harding, sending hundreds of emails, each one signed, "Your friends and shipmates." Once they even turned the tables on Mr. Harding, surprising him at his house in Oklahoma. Whoever said history is irrelevant, obviously, never fell in love with it.
We don't know about how we've changed his lives, but we know that he obviously changed ours.
Steve Hartman, CBS News, on the road.
A long overdue salute to a trailblazing Vietnam War veteran who risked his life to save his fellow soldiers. For his remarkable valor, retired Colonel Paris Davis was awarded the Medal of Honor, the nation's highest military recognition. Here is CBS's Catherine Herridge, who first brought us Davis's story 2 years ago.
58 years after he bore the battle, we honor a true hero of our nation.
With that, President Biden awarded the Medal of Honor to 83-year-old Paris Davis, one of the first black officers in the Army's elite Green Berets.
It's northeast of Saigon near Bong Son.
In 1965, Davis was hit by grenade and gunfire during a 19-hour battle in Vietnam. Among other acts of heroism, Davis rescued his own wounded soldiers under heavy enemy fire. Davis defied an order to evacuate, as he told Phil Donahue in 1969.
Well, I told him, sir, I'm just not going to leave. I still have an American out there.
Davis's commanding officer, Billy Cole, immediately nominated him for the Medal of Honor. But then the records mysteriously vanished.
There's still a question is what the devil went on. Why did it take so long?
CBS News sat down with Davis and his daughter, Reagan Davis Hopper.
Reagan, was race a factor?
I suspect it might have been, and I think that's a shame. So I'm so proud of us to finally set this right.
That took the work of this diverse group of volunteers, many who didn't know Davis, but worked to revive his case.
It's really very emotional.
Are you wearing that medal for the men and women you served with?
Well, mostly for the men and women I serve with, but it's for America too.
The retired colonel becomes one of 65 living recipients of the Medal of Honor.
Incredible guy.
He's my hero, and I'm just so thrilled that America's going to get to know him too.
Catherine Herridge, CBS News, the White House.
The Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor marked America's entry into World War II. Joy Benedict of our Los Angeles station, KCBS, met a group of veterans who made the trip to Hawaii to remember in hopes that we don't forget their sacrifice.
It was a heartfelt moment etched in patriotism. As this airport's baggage claim transformed into a stage of honor for 7 World War II veterans about to cross the Pacific and remember those who never made it home.
Means so much, especially at the last years of my life.
Bryce Jordan was a pilot in the U.S. Army Air Corps. At 97, he is one of dozens of World War II veterans making the trip to Hawaii this weekend for the 80th remembrance ceremony of the bombing of Pearl Harbor. After 80 years, most making the trip weren't in service when the bombing took place. They enlisted because of it.
It was shocking because we didn't even know that there was a problem with Japan at that time.
It was December 7th, 1941. 2,403 service members and civilians died that day.
As soon as the war started, people volunteered. Everyone was ready to go.
And as the members of the greatest generation get smaller in number every year, these men hope their stories will be retold so that younger Americans never forget. These veterans will spend 4 nights and 5 days there on Oahu, not only going to that ceremony on Tuesday, but seeing the sights.
I think it's wonderful that us old veterans get a chance to do that.
One more memory, one more moment for a generation that won the war and changed the world, but is losing to time. Joy Benedict, CBS News, Orange County, California.
And it is important to honor our veterans every day. CBS's Jan Crawford highlights a group of young people honoring the fallen through song.
The musicians greeting these veterans at Dulles International Airport sound like professionals. But they're just kids, as young as 6 years old, carrying on a tradition that goes back to the American Revolution. They're from the Fife and Drum Corps at Linton Hall School, an independent Catholic school just outside D.C. 10-year-old Luke McGehee is the Fife captain.
How did you decide that you wanted to play the fife in the Fife and Drum Corps?
I saw people playing and I thought it looked really fun.
Founded in 2000, the Corps performs patriotic music all over town. Like at George Washington's home, Mount Vernon, and the National Portrait Gallery. 13-year-old Xavier Williams is drum captain.
Normally when we hear and see fife and drum, it's grown-ups. What do they say to you when they think you're 10, you're 13?
They're not gonna do well at all.
People are doubting you at first.
Yeah.
Once we start playing, they're like amazed.
Amazed that a group of kids so young can be so powerful. Jan Crawford, CBS News, Bristow, Virginia.
Tonight, a story that began in the chaos of World War II has a remarkable ending, all because of an American GI's split-second decision to hold fire. CBS's Chris Livesay reports from Bologna, Italy.
Reunited after 77 years, 3 lifetimes nearly cut short. In 1944, Private First Class Martin Adler was 20 years old, stationed in Italy and hunting for Nazis.
And I had my good old Thompson submachine gun. Brrr.
Suddenly, movement from a pile of blankets, but before he could pull the trigger,
Mama came out screaming, "Bambinis, bambinis, bambinis."
Children.
Children. And she stood in front of my gun, preventing me from...
In his relief, Adler had his picture taken with the siblings. An astounding reunion for Private Adler, now 97 and living in Florida, thanks to his daughter Rochelle, who used the internet to track down the kids, now grandparents, even great-grandparents, just like Private Adler. And thanks to Private Adler, who held the trigger.
What do you think that was that made you stop?
God looked down on me, and God looked down on Italia.
Chris Livesay, CBS News, Bologna, Italy.
Tonight, tens of thousands of veterans will spend the night without a roof over their heads. But in Los Angeles, some are finding shelter in a village of tiny homes, as Joy Benedict reports in tonight's Weekend Journal.
The west side of Los Angeles is known for giant waving flags and patriotism. But nestled behind the gates of the Veterans Affairs compound, it is the smallest of symbols that seem to have the biggest impact on those who served.
Mine is down here.
Michael Shea is homeless, or at least he was.
That's a parachute rigger, and then those are my airborne wings.
He was proud to show off his first home in almost a year, a tiny structure built on the lawn of the Los Angeles VA.
It's not a car door. It's not, it's actual, it's a door.
And there are rows of doors. This is CTRS, Care Treatment Rehabilitation Services, the only tiny home village in the nation run by the VA and reserved for homeless veterans.
Thought that this would be the best avenue to getting back to that, forever home.
And he's not alone. There are an estimated 40,000 homeless veterans nationwide. So when the pandemic shut down group shelters and tents displaying the stars and stripes started showing up outside the gates, this program was born. A tent city, then tiny shelters, all of which are donated.
We had a lot of homeless veterans, but we needed a place to put them.
Shannon Santini runs the program. In the last 4 months, she has seen donations come in from local schools, local businesses, even former Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger.
It's really heartwarming to be able to offer a pallet shelter to someone versus a tent. So it's really wonderful.
But it's also very sad when you think about how much need there is here in this community.
Veterans right now are coming here from all across the country saying, oh, we saw that you have this pallet shelter. Can we come to it?
But this is just the beginning.
5 years since I had my own place. 5, 6 years.
Warren Miller moved into one of the first tiny shelters in October. A few weeks ago,
come into my little humble abode.
He unlocked the door to a real home.
I love the smile you're wearing these days.
Thank you. I got something to smile about.
And although Shea is just thankful for his tiny shelter, he's starting to realize he deserves more.
The longer I became homeless, the more undeserving I felt. So the more times I closed that door, the more I started to feel I deserved a home.
Not just a door, a gateway to a fresh start and hopefully a home for all who served.
Yeah.
Feels good.
Feels good.
Joy Benedict, CBS News, Los Angeles.
Bill Mulder was one of the nation's most decorated Navy SEALs.
He was a true patriot, 20 years serving his country.
His wife, Sydney, says he was a great dad and dedicated to his SEAL team.
Bill was incredibly proud. He loved his job.
But after a grueling mission to Afghanistan in 2009, Sydney says Bill changed. He was angry, started drinking excessively, and shut down.
Why did Bill refuse the help? He felt if he opened up and if he were honest and truthful, he would jeopardize his career. And I'll get kicked out. I'll lose my security clearance.
6 months after leaving the Navy, he called Sydney on FaceTime and put a gun to his head.
And I said, "You're scaring me. I'm scared." And I heard a gunshot and I saw what I saw, and then the phone, it went black, and I threw the phone on the ground.
Say I'm a veteran or service member seeking help.
At the same time, Sydney's brother, William Negley, a former CIA officer, was developing SoundOff, an app that would let those who serve reach out for help anonymously.
and then you're using encryption to protect the actual conversation.
Exactly.
According to the VA, 17 veterans a day take their lives.
Half or more of those that are suffering the most never seek help.
John is one of the veterans who downloaded the app. His team cleared roadside bombs in Afghanistan.
I do think the Sound Off app saved my life.
We agreed to protect his identity. Sound Off put him in touch with a therapist.
If a soldier or a service member wishes to advance their career and stay in the service, to seek mental help, I think is a barrier still.
Negley says the app has helped 200 veterans, and he wants to expand. 4 years later, Sydney Mulder wears the watch her husband had on when he died. Clipped on is their wedding ring.
I'll put my finger and just kind of sit there.
A reminder, she says, their family is healing, and Bill continues to serve. Catherine Herridge, CBS News, Bethesda, Maryland.
And hopefully this new tool will help others and save lives.
Sharwan Burgos is taking a leap of faith, skydiving with the Army's Golden Knights parachute team. But it's nothing compared to the leap the retired Army major took seeking help for PTSD after deployments to Iraq and Afghanistan.
The hardest part for me was seeking mental health treatment the first time. Sometimes making that first step into a facility or even just seeking treatment is the hardest thing you'll ever do.
These jumps are about raising awareness of the mental health challenges facing women veterans, something former POW Jessica Lynch knows firsthand.
Was it hard to ask for that help?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I felt like my story had been so kind of well known that I didn't want to kind of add on top of what I already went through.
Lynch was taken prisoner after her convoy was ambushed by Iraqi troops in 2003. She was rescued by U.S. Special Forces days later.
It was probably a good 10 years before I even came out and said that I had PTSD. Yeah.
But still, a decade after you got back, you were still dealing with some of the demons.
Yeah. I never really spoke about those inner kind of demons that eat at you.
Nearly 12% of women veterans experience PTSD, almost double the rate of their male counterparts. Women also have higher rates of depression and eating disorders. In 2018, the suicide rate for female vets was almost twice that of women who did not serve. Since retiring from the Army, Burgos has focused on helping her fellow vets get the help they need, working as an outreach director for the Cohen Veterans Network. Its 21 clinics have treated more than 30,000 service members, veterans, and their families.
Sometimes you may have to reach your hand out and grab them through and let them know that it's okay.
While women make up about 10% of all veterans, they are 30% of the vets treated by Cohen.
We think that's because female veterans are more willing to seek treatment.
Tracy Neal Walden is Cohen's chief clinical officer.
Female veterans are very resilient. Oftentimes, there's more of an emphasis on taking care of those other daily needs and taking care of the other people in the family. And so that's why the symptoms may go untreated for many years.
Something these women hope their leaps of faith help change. For Eye on America, Chris Van Cleve, Maxton, North Carolina.